but I was fascinated by the fact that we are now talking about microbiome. And the first time I heard about it, the gut in your stomach, was from Candace Pert. She is a very famous scholar. And she wrote a book called Molecules of Emotion. And that's the tie-in what we'll see how it happens today. And from here on, I'll give you a switch to talking about Professor Dilip Sarkar. He joined our Taksha and started the Center for Integrative Medicine and Yoga. He's a very famous vascular surgeon in Virginia Beach and Norfolk. And then due to some heart issues, he quit. And that's when he decided to switch completely to the yoga therapy. And he was the president of International Yoga Therapy Association for 5 years in a row. So therefore, he comes with a great credibility in this field. And I would like him to, with that brief introduction, Dilip, you can start, but moderation will be done later on by Abha. Which way you want to proceed, Abha?
Okay. Thank you, Adarsh.
Welcome.
Yeah, said, my dear sisters and brothers of Taksha Institute, today is the 7th International Day of Yoga. And remember, we call it a yoga. Yoga is the right Sanskrit word. In West, we call it, they cannot pronounce your yoga, so they call it a yoga. And so today, as others said, we have a department of CIMI called Center for Integrative Medicine and Yoga. And as all of you, we practice primary yoga therapy and Ayurveda. And yoga, as all of you know, it's a philosophy, it's a practice, a clean practice. But when you do a sort of adaptation for different diseases, it becomes as a yoga, as a therapy. So yoga therapy today primarily is a relaxation response and activation of parasympathetic tone. What does this has to do with a GI tract, which Rashmi Kulkarni is going to talk. I'm just going to set up the stage. So think about the stage. Yoga therapy is a holistic. Yoga therapy is not concerned about the disease you have. Yoga therapy is concerned about the whole person. And whole person is known through Ayurvedic philosophy, through doshas, dhatus, malas. Like you say, you're having your Vata, Pitta, Kapha, your Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, Prana, Teja, Ojas. But what this has to do with the digestion? Our whole GI tract, gastrointestinal tract, is supplied by parasympathetic nerve from your mouth to the anal canal. So when you create a parasympathetic tone, the food gets properly digested. And she's going to talk about a health. And think about what a health is today. When the food is properly digested, what happens in our yoga and Ayurvedic philosophy, the food converts into 7 tissues called Saptadhatu. Rashadhatu, plasma, Raktadhatu, blood, Mamsadhatu, muscles, Metadhatu, fat, Ustidhatu, bones and joints, Majjadhatu, nervous tissue, Shukradhatu, reproductive tissue. Then it forms a substance called Ojas. Ojas is our immune system. That's our immunity, that's our health. So yoga and Ayurveda is the same because it comes from the same root. Prana, the life force, which keeps us awake, alert, and alive. It's a cellular communication. Tejas is our Agni, the fire within us, which gives us the tejas, the glow around us. And the ojas is our cellular immunity. So health is defined as a prana is flowing, teja is glowing, and oja is forming. What a wonderful way to start this session. And primarily, what all of you need to know, that what we say from an Ayurvedic standpoint, that Western says you are what you eat, we say you are what you digest. Food has some concern, but if you think about a Western philosophy, food is a calorie. You have to burn the calorie. How do you burn? You exercise, you get, that's okay, but that's a sympathetic overdrive that creates undigested food, that creates a substance called ama. Ama is a undigested food toxin, which is the mother of all the diseases. Again, last sentence, which Abha and me use all the time, and Rashmi, Kulkarni, you need to hear this. The health, when we present our classes, we define that we form the health by looking at a baby. A healthy baby will eat, poop, and sleep. So in our school, in our book, health is a strong digestion, easy elimination, and good night, dreamless sleep. Now we invite Abha Gupta to introduce our esteemed speaker, and I set the stage for you. So please introduce her.
Thank you, Dr. Deepak, and thank you, Dr. Sarkar, for providing the context for today's talk. And it is my honor to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Rashmi Kulkarni. She has a PhD in molecular genetics from the Ohio State University and a master's degree in microbiology from the Institute of Science in Mumbai. She got her postdoctoral she did her postdoctoral research, and for that she focused on evolutionary genetics at the Institute of Molecular and Cell Biology in Singapore. Rashmi is a volunteer for the Global Indian Scientists and Technocrats Forum for the Ahar Kranti Nutritional Educational Module. And Ahar Kranti is a nutrition revolution that is an initiative by the government of India that was launched earlier this year. And it is a movement to raise awareness of the importance of nutritionally balanced diet in India. So without further ado, I welcome Dr. Kulkarni. Over to you, Dr. Kulkarni.
Thank you so much, Abha. Thank you so much, Dilip ji, for such a wonderful stage that you have set. It will be hard to match what you have said. I'll try my best. So I'll just share my screen. And what a wonderful audience on the International Day of Yoga. I hope everybody can see my slides. Are the slides visible?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to focus our attention to the fact that let's see how human we are, because we are so proud of being human, and how different we are from other animals, other organisms, and we are so superior. That's what we think about ourselves. So today I'll just talk about how human we really are and what it means to be who we are. So some of the aspects that I will cover is our microbiome, nutrition, and how both relate to our long-term health. If we look at our body, what we think of ourselves is on the left, we see that our visible organs are who we are. This is human. That's not who we really are. We are a combination of our visible organs and the invisible microorganisms that live within us and on our bodies. This is what makes us a complete human, as shown on the right. So when I define the term microbiome, which we constantly hear all the time, what is a microbiome? So a microbiome is a collection of the genetic material of all the microorganisms that live inside our bodies. So these can either be bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and fungi. These are the major forms of microorganisms that have been seen in humans. This is a collective term that is called microbiome. What's the importance of these microbes in our life? Let's look at the numbers. in a human body, inside and out on the surface, there are 10 times as many microorganisms as there are human cells in our body. That's a large number. So what does that mean? Scientists have sequenced at least 10,000 different microbial species that have been identified to be living inside the human body. And if we look at why this is important, when we look at the unique genes or the genetic material that actually functions, it is 100 times more than our own genes. I'm just talking about the unique genes here. That's a huge number. This is what makes us different from each other, from individuals. So when we look at the genetic material of humans, we are 99.99% similar, but we are not really alike. And the microbes that live inside us and that function symbiotically are the ones that make us different from other human beings. So if we look at the numbers, we are really only 10% human. But are we? If we look at the functions, functionally, we are only 1% human. 99% of the genes outnumber, the microbial genes outnumber our genes, and they are functioning all the time with our genes. So that's a humbling number. Where do these microorganisms come from? What is the source? It's very interesting that we think of the womb as a very sterile environment inside the mother. But if we look at the left side here, left panel, the baby is constantly receiving metabolites from the mother's microbiome. And this is very helpful in helping the baby grow. So the healthier the mother's microbiome, the healthier the baby. And when the baby is born via vaginal delivery, the baby actually receives the mother's microbiome. That is the first source of the microbiome. Babies who are delivered by C-section are deprived of this microbiome. That is the first source. And now doctors have actually started seeding the mother's microbiome to these babies to avoid later health issues. And the other thing that is also very important is after this initial seeding, the mode of delivery, the feeding practices also are very, very important. Breastfeeding gives the best microbiome to babies. If you consider formula feeding, the formula does not give the same kind of microorganisms because it's normally sterile, and people even sterilize the water. So it is quite different what kind of a microbiome breastfeeding versus formula feeding can provide. So there are these age-dependent microbiome changes. We keep accumulating microorganisms in our body right from birth. And if we look from the left to the right, we keep increasing the diversity of the microbiome from birth. And during adulthood, it is quite stable. It is very rich and very diverse. So if we have a very healthy microbiome, it is going to lead to very good health. If we see in older adults, the diversity starts reducing, and this can be a cause of some of the chronic diseases. If we look at what these microorganisms do, because they seem to be doing everything. So yes, they actually do everything right from training our immune system. If we look on the left side, these are the functions separated within the immune system training. On the right, we can see different aspects of digestion that the microbiome focuses on or helps us with. On the bottom right, they are also very helpful in nervous system development. And on the left, we can see that they are involved in drug metabolism. It depends what kind of a microbiome we have that helps us with drug metabolism. Also, tissue development and maintenance is very dependent on our microbiome. So if we look at these functions in defense, these are the microorganisms that train our immune system all the time. And they teach our immune system which ones are beneficial and which ones are pathogenic. They also help us degrade toxic compounds in our body. If we look at the nutrition aspect, they can digest food that we cannot digest. For example, dietary fiber, that is extremely important for us. That is digested by the microorganisms and not by us. When these microorganisms break down the dietary fiber, they release short chain fatty acids, which are very, very beneficial for our health. And they also facilitate absorption of a lot of minerals and synthesize some essential vitamins that we cannot make. For example, many of the B vitamins and vitamin K, as well as some amino acids. And they in turn modulate our behavior and shape our mood. If we look at how they train our immune system, this looks like a very complicated slide, but in the bottom it's written that the gut is our largest immune organ. Although we don't think of it that way, 70 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. So on the left side in the figure here, we see that in a baby, when the gut is not really developed and there are no bacteria here or no microorganisms, it's a sterile gut. During birth, the baby receives microorganisms and it slowly starts getting colonized. And when the immune system is still developing, the immune system starts recognizing these organisms as self, that these belong to us. And that's how the immune system gets trained to differentiate between pathogenic and non-pathogenic organisms. So it is extremely important to give a very good start to babies to develop their immune system. So this cartoon just shows what the immune system looks like. On the bottom here, the microorganisms in our gut and our body are training our immune system actively all the time. And the green bugs shown on top here are saying, oh, I think we'll struggle to set up colony here. It's also true for the COVID pandemic, because people who have followed excellent nutrition and exercise have had an excellent training for their immune system. Some fun fact for a break in between. So when we think of microorganisms and where we are receiving them from, they come from everywhere. They come from our environment, they come from food. So what are the dirtiest surfaces inside our homes? Because we are constantly cleaning some of the surfaces. But the ones that I show here are not the ones that we think about cleaning. There are 200 times more fecal bacteria on an average cutting board that cuts raw meat than there are on a toilet seat. And the dirtiest thing inside the house is the kitchen sponge. But instead, what we do is we keep cleaning tables, chairs, everything, all the surfaces with surface disinfectants, use antibiotics, use antibacterial hand washes, body washes, toothpaste, antimicrobial wipes, hand sanitizers. I know it's important for COVID, but even otherwise people are always using it. Antimicrobial floor cleaner. What does that do to the microbiome? We don't have any source for the microbiome left. We don't have the diversity that we need to have extremely good health or immunity. So that's the hygiene hypothesis. When we live in a very sterile environment where we are constantly cleaning things that should not be cleaned, we are depriving ourselves of sources of a healthy microbiome. If we look at the children here playing outside, outdoors, or children who are constantly indoors, busy on their tablets, who do you think should have a healthy microbiome? So what exactly happens when the microbiome is not healthy? When we have a collection of unhealthy microbes in our gut, as shown in the middle, the representation of the gut. It affects our immunity because these are the microorganisms that provide a physical barrier to all the pathogenic microorganisms entering in our system. And they're also training our immune system constantly. They also synthesize vitamins, as I mentioned before, B vitamins and vitamin K, absorb calcium and iron. They help with metabolism. And if this doesn't go right, there's inflammation, there's a leaky gut. The unhealthy gut microbes and low diversity cause gut inflammation, and the gut starts leaking. That is the cause of majority of the diseases. And in these diseases, the gut bacteria, of the individuals with severe chronic diseases differ significantly from individuals without the disease. Several scientists have sequenced all of these bacteria, and there are specific signatures for each disease that can be correlated that are different from individuals without the disease. And majority of these can be reversed, even chronic diseases. It is possible to recover by recovering the gut microbiome. There are several ways of doing that, including diet or fecal microbial transplant or supplements like prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. So it's a simple equation. Bad gut microbes, increased inflammation, that equals to poor quality of life because of chronic diseases. So what scientists are saying now is that gut microbiome is so important and it is affecting our health in so many different ways that we should actually classify that officially as a separate organ, because it constitutes about 1.5 to 2 kilograms of an adult's weight, and its function is extremely important. Again, looking at what the gut microbiota does in disease and health, this is again summarizing what I showed before. If we look at disease and a disturbed microbiome, there are many of these functions that are extremely disturbed. But if we have a good microbiome, dietary fiber intake, probiotic intake, we will have a much better health because we have improved all of the markers for good health. Now let's look at what gut feelings are. Gut feelings actually might be real because 70% of our peripheral nervous system is inside the gut. And the gut microbiome might actually guide the workings of our mind. That can be actually classified as our second brain. And this second brain influences our mood, our well-being, and all of our feelings. A huge part of our emotions are probably influenced by these nerves in the gut. So the gut microbiome can communicate with the gut nervous system, which is our second gut. That's why I'm saying that gut feelings are real. Now, psychobiome is something that sounds scary. What scientists have done is they have sequenced, many labs have sequenced microbes from people who are suffering from several disorders affecting the brain that I've shown on the right, that are psychological disorders, psychiatric disorders, starting from a simple mood or cognition deficit to more severe ones like ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, Parkinson's, or Alzheimer's. There are again specific signatures of these microorganisms seen in people suffering from these conditions in the gut. And these gut bacteria produce metabolites that go on to affect the brain or the peripheral nervous system. Scientists have even transferred these gut bacteria to mice or that did not have any of these microorganisms, and they were able to recapitulate the same symptoms in mice. So the gut bacteria are actually driving these symptoms. So this particular experiment is done using a fecal microbiota transfer, wherein a fecal sample, as shown on the left, is prepared and homogenized and tested, and it is transferred to a healthy individual to test what happens when these microorganisms are transferred. So this is also being done to treat a lot of chronic diseases. If we look on the left here, this is for treatment of obesity. In obesity, if we look on in panel C, in the circle, it shows a very low diversity of microorganisms in the gut. So after the fecal microbial transplant, the individual is leaner and there's a much more highly diverse microbiome. There are several experiments being done to see whether diseases have been can be treated this way. And the most successful one so far has been the treatment of C. difficile infections, which is extremely difficult to treat by antibiotics. So this is again an example of lean to obese transplant of fecal microbial material. And it has been shown to improve the insulin sensitivity immediately. If we look at microbiome and cancer, even cancers have signatures of changed microbiome. If we consider breast cancer, for example, there is a different signature that is altered in cases of breast cancer. And this is the skin microbiome that I'm talking to. And the response to cancer therapy is very dependent on the gut microbiome content of the patient. If we look on the left side here, the fecal microbiota transplant, there are people who are responders and people who are non-responders in cases of chemotherapy. So what doctors are doing now is taking microbiome from the responders and transplanting it into the non-responders so that these patients can now actually respond to the chemotherapy. Because as I mentioned before, these microorganisms are helping us metabolize drugs as well. So if we look at, again, the highlighting the importance of microbiome in immunity and health, the traditional diet that we follow or used to follow rather in India was very, very diverse, very rich in micro and macronutrients, and there were these very complex combinations that were extremely beneficial for healthy microbial diversity. And this in turn has a very high level of interaction with our immune system, which is required to train the immune system, and it leads to good health. But the industrialized diet, which is extremely low in fiber, low in nutrition, and high in empty calories, leads to a low microbial diversity in the gut and in the body overall. And it leads to low interaction levels with the immune system, causing a lot of health issues later in life. So on the right, if we look at this cycle, optimum nutrition helps us nurture healthy microbes, which in turn lead to good immunity, leading to good health. And this is a virtuous cycle which keeps going. People who are in good health and who are already following this keep doing the same thing, and they remain much healthier. So can we correlate the ancient wisdom with current science? Because whatever we hear and think about from India, oh, this is folklore, most people do not want to believe in it. And we tend to move towards more simple meals like one pot meals or things that are not really nutritious. So how do we correlate our ancient wisdom and current science to find solutions for our nutrition habits? If we look at what Ayurveda said, just Dilipji mentioned about exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But what this was shown in a recent review from several papers that have worked on Ayurveda. The microbiome is shown to affect all of our systems like the central nervous system, gastrointestinal, hematological, immune system, cardiovascular, endocrine system. And what the microbiome does is it supports the ojas or immunity, it supports the agni or digestive fire, it also helps digesting the toxins or undigested matter or ama. It in turn affects directly the mind, the body type, bodily tissues, and the metabolic waste in our body. If we look at our circadian rhythm, nutrition, and Ayurveda, what Ayurveda mentions is that according to the Ayurvedic clock, the morning period or the morning time is the Kapha Pradhan Kal, which is from dawn to midday or noon. The afternoon is Pitta Pradhan Kal, which is where our metabolism is very high. The evening is the Vata Pradhan Kal. So according to the Ayurveda clock, when the Kapha Pradhan Kal is, when our metabolism is awakening, we should eat light. And during the Pitta Pradhan Kal, we can have our heaviest meal because our Agni is ignited or the digestive fire is high. And evening is the Vata Pradhan Kal, where we should again have our last meal before dusk and it should be light. So food should be consumed with respect to the time of the day according to the Ayurvedic clock. Now let's see how it relates to current science. Here we are looking at the circadian rhythm going up when the sun is, when it's dawn. So this is the activity of our brain. Our brain is awake, and at night the activity goes down. And these colorful rods and circles I've shown here are the microorganisms in our gut. So scientists have already shown several times that the composition of our gut microbiome changes during the day. It is different in the morning. It's quite altered at night. So what happens is they keep cycling every day. So we have a different composition during the day, and it depends on the metabolism, what we have eaten, and also the hormones that are produced during the day and the night, and they correlate perfectly. So this is the purple rods here is the time in between these changes where we should optimally eat all our meals. And this the red dotted line here is our metabolism. If we keep following these, with the metabolism is also very much in sync with our brain, with the microorganisms, with the time of the day. We keep doing this over and over, and it leads to good health because we have everything digested. The microorganisms are changing as they are supposed to. Our brain and the metabolism are completely in sync, and it can lead to good health. On the contrary, what we do right now is we eat right after dawn. We start eating as soon as we wake up, and our last meal is way into the next cycle. It is much later after the microorganisms have changed, and they are not capable of digesting the food that we have eaten at that time of the day. So what it does is this keeps going out of sync. The metabolism goes out of sync because now there is some undigested material left on the first day. Toxins start accumulating. On day two, it's even more. We keep doing it over and over. The composition of the microbiome changes on day n. The metabolism is completely out of sync. The brain metabolism and the microbiome are in very different phases, and we have a lot of toxic material and undigested food accumulating over time. This leads to weakened immunity, harmful metabolites, and undigested toxic food. When we have all of these, it is definitely going to lead to some kind of chronic disease or cancer. So what we saw just now is current science and Ayurveda say exactly the same thing. Now, if we look at seasonal consumption of food, Ayurveda specifies that we should eat very different things in different seasons because the pravritti or the temperament or metabolism is quite different during different seasons like Pitta, Vata, and Kapha. So even if we look at the microbiome composition, the composition is quite different in each of these seasons, and the food habits should be according to the season. So whichever way we look at it, we arrive to the same conclusion. If we look at the health pyramid based on Ayurveda principles, the bottom three steps here mention the dinacharya, rutucharya, and sattvic food. So on the left, I've shown if we manage to follow any of these, sattvic food, rajasic or tamasic, we will be still in the prevention area of diseases. But once we start changing our lifestyle and food habits and this untimely eating of food, it will go into the treatment phase. Then we need to use herbs and plants as food or medicines or very drastic methods of treatment. So what Ayurveda does is to maintain the health of a person so that no diseases manifest. And in case of diseases, Ayurveda also aims to cure the diseases, not just treat the symptoms. So now coming back to nutrition, we looked at what the microbiome does, but how do you get a good microbiome? Excellent outdoor exposure and a nutritionally balanced diet. If we get all of the macro and micronutrients that our cells need to function optimally, like good carbohydrates, including fiber, healthy fats, proteins, vitamins and minerals, and also spices. I'll mention a special mention for spices here. They are the highlight of Indian cuisine. And these spices give so many additional health benefits that are extra from the macro and micronutrients. All of these keep the body and the mind healthy and prepare our body to defend against all pathogenic organisms. So we should eat the rainbow, as we say. Why is it important? Because all of these colored fruits and vegetables have very different vitamins in them. In order to get all of these vitamins, most of which are water soluble and need to be replenished on a daily basis, we need to eat a very colorful diet. And on the right, you can see that the effect on health is a reduction of most of the chronic diseases. Now I'll give an example of what we do when we think of ourselves as very healthy eaters. Most people think that they are very healthy eaters. So let's try to see where the problem arises. This is a food pyramid, which was a very old one. Now it has been adjusted with fruits and vegetables below. But what happens if we look at carbohydrates? Most people think that, oh, this is very healthy, we are eating healthy food. But what they are eating actually is on the left, refined, low fiber diet. What they should be eating is high fiber things that are more enriched with fiber or not refined, made with refined flour. And this is important because the whole grain has a bran layer outside it and the germ. So the germ is packed with nutrients, vitamins, and the bran is full of fiber. After removing this, people are consuming this refined grain and thinking that and thinking that they are eating very healthy. If we look at fruits and vegetables, this is what most people consume. A lot of fried vegetables, fruit juices, smoothies. In fact, this is the healthier version of what we should be eating. Raw fruits, vegetables, stir-fried, minimally cooked, minimally processed. That's a much healthier way of eating fruits and vegetables. If we look at dairy, again, this is dairy and fish. On the left, we can see the normal consumption most people have in their lives. And this is how it should be on the right. The same with meat, smoked, grilled, fried meat versus healthier ways of cooking. Fats and sugars. There are much healthier options that we need to consider, like healthy oils, nuts, seeds, fish, and for sugars, there are many like honey, dates that are much healthier options, and dates are also very high in fiber. So coming to sugar, what's the problem with the sugar content? I mentioned that a lot of people give their children juice to drink or they drink smoothies. So what happens when you have sugar? Sorry, there's something wrong with the slide. So what happens when you drink juice instead of eating a fruit? What happens to the microbiome? Let's look at the left panel here. If we eat a medium orange, there's very slow controlled release of blood sugar because you're eating the sugar with the fiber. The carbs are along with the fiber. So the actual sugar that we get is 10 to 13 grams. If we look at orange juice, for example, there's a rapid blood sugar spike and fall because the fiber is gone. So instead we end up getting 48 grams of sugar. And soda is worse, which is 58 grams. And this is because there are several oranges that are used to get just one glass of juice. All of the fiber is removed. And we don't seem to consider that. So if we look at the left side here, when we eat whole fruits, vegetables, whole grains, or low-fat food, it is interacting with our entire system when we ingest a food till it is completely digested and leaves our system. This is extremely healthy. But if we look at fruit juice on the right side, or overcooked pureed vegetables, processed refined grains, or a high-fat diet, they are not really interacting with our digestive system or the microbiome, and we are not getting the nutrients that we need. We are just getting the sugar. This is the low fiber diet cartoon, just representing what happens when the diet is very low in fiber. The diversity of the microbiome is extremely low. So because of the diet that has very, very low fiber and high calorie, there is a disappearance of the gut microbiome diversity. And this is extremely concerning, because preserving the microbiome diversity is as important as preserving species on Earth. We have co-evolved with our microorganisms. In order to be healthy, we need to preserve all of the ancient microbiomes. If we look at the consequences of eating processed food, they are so far from their original form. They have very low nutritive value, empty calories, and they cause obesity and overweight without actual growth and development. And it also leads to cognitive decline and many, many other things like anxiety, depression, worse appetite and digestion, increased risk of all chronic diseases, overall poor quality of life, and poor gut health. There are several ways to avoid processed food. We can drink enough water, change the diet very gradually to a healthier one, because it's extremely difficult to change it suddenly. We can time our cravings. If we know what time we are likely to crave, we can eat healthier before. We can plan our nutrition, our meals, mindful eating, eating more protein. And when we are very hungry, it definitely leads to worse choices. If we reduce our stress and get enough sleep, we can also choose much better. We are what we eat. We are exactly what we eat. Our mood, our appearance, how we feel depends on what we eat. If we eat bad, we look bad and we feel bad. Whereas a good balanced diet leads to a very healthy mental and physical well-being. We eat good, we look good, and we feel good. So when we look at why people are still not able to make better food choices, it is because we are not dining alone. There's this history and there's this accumulation of the microorganisms right from birth that are with us, and they are the ones that are craving all of these unhealthy things if we live a life eating all of these things. So it's not just us who chooses what we eat. A large part is played by the microorganisms because they are craving all of this kind of food. So the changes we need in our diet have to be slow, gradual in order to be effective. The traditional Indian thalis, again, I want to highlight, have a lot of micro and macronutrients that we need in our daily lives. They are very colorful. They have all of these chutneys that have the micronutrients. They have a wide diversity of food, and they also use a lot of whole grains that are different kinds of rotis, different kinds of rice. So there's this variation that keeps the microbiome very healthy and very happy. So our nutrition is a calculated risk that we take on our long-term health. We can choose to eat some processed food or not at all. It is something that we are taking a risk with our health. So we can do the math. And when you team good nutrition with exercise, as the Taksha Institute is doing so wonderfully, it will definitely lead to good health, because exercise and nutrition go hand in hand, and they are the two wings that we need for good health. So people, I mean, this is a wrong slide for this audience, because you are already doing something amazing with the yoga. But the journey for nutrition to good health starts with a single step. So I'll just end my talk here, and I'll gladly take any questions. And as Abhaji mentioned before, I am a volunteer for Global Indian Scientists and Technocrats Forum. And we have launched something called Ahar Kranti, or a nutrition revolution, which was also supported by the government. When we actually approached them, we had Dr. Harshvardhan inaugurate the Ahar Kranti for us. So what we are doing is we are increasing awareness for people about nutrition. If people are more aware about nutrition and how they can adjust that, it will lead to much better long-term health. So that is the goal. And if anybody wants to know more about it, I would be very happy to share. So I can take any questions.
Rashmi, can you unshare your slides so
Yes.
everybody will be in a gallery view?
Yes, one second.
I have a very question that has been, since I read Emotions, Molecules of Emotions by Candace Pert, she always called that you can create any mental health by a cocktail of peptides.
Yes.
And is it, what does the peptide do over there?
Yes, it is true, because that's what the microbiome is doing. If we have, I mean, depends on what kind of a microbiome we have, but whatever we have, it is constantly producing metabolites that are interacting with our nervous system all the time. And that affects how we feel and how we react to things. If we eat something very healthy, we are likely to make very different decisions than if we, I mean, select junk food or processed food.
Okay.
So yes, we can take synthetic peptides and have the same effect.
Okay, Rashmi, I hope we can call you Rashmi. We're
Yes,
friends
yes,
now.
sure.
Yes. And we are in America. You know, first name is all the way it goes.
Yes, yes, I
First of
studied here.
all,
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, let me make few comments, you know,
Yes.
of your talk. The first was the brilliant part of your talk was to integrating what is called East meets West, you know. And Abha knows, everybody knows. I just want to share for everybody. Everybody has seen. I wrote a book called Yoga Therapy, Ayurveda and Western Medicine, a Healthy Convergence. And it has an integration of all the threes together. And exactly what you mentioned there, the way you brought it up, that the morning, the kapha time, you know, pitta time, you know, the main meal will be lunch. Our approach is very simple. Our approach is the diet is our 6 taste and 7 coloring fruits and vegetables. If you take the 7 coloring fruits and vegetables, you get every micronutrient. You really don't need any supplement, because you know in our book there is nothing called supplement. It's called a complement if you need. That's number one. Number two, a very fascinating Ayurvedic principle. If you follow, remember, the food has to be digested. It's not food what we eat. And remember what Ayurveda said, that if your food is not properly digested, the medication has no use. But if the food is properly digested, you don't need any medication. So one very important message for all of us to take home is that in Ayurveda clearly says that please don't take fruits with your meal. And we have seen today in our West, you will see that don't take this medication with this fruit juice, another thing. We have analyzed what it is. The fruit juice has an enzyme called intestinal glycoprotein, which interferes with the absorption of your trace elements. It has an enzyme called cytochrome P450, which interferes with the metabolism of the medication. So whole Ayurvedic principle is you eat a 7 coloring fruits, not only red, not only green, you know, the whole spectrum of rainbow, vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, in the afternoon as a snack. And if you have to eat fruits with the meal, please eat the fruit first. And we have a proper, you know, we are all Ayurvedic, we know the Ayurvedic sequence of eating, but if you don't remember, eat from light to the heavy. As simple as it is. And my one question to you is that this is our gut feeling. This is our, not even the second brain, maybe the first brain, because you know there is more neurotransmitters in gut than the brain itself. And obviously, we are what we digest. Now, my question to you is today, we are all talking about eat this, eat that, eat what not this. Great. Look at the Germans eating sauerkraut and sausage, living almost 5 years more than people in the United States. Look at the Russians. If you look at even, there is an area in Eastern Russia, which people are all average 100 years. They eat only dairy and the meat. So question comes up here is very clear that you have to be in a parasympathetic tone, digest the food. And I still remember my grandma used to say, look at this person, how healthy he is. And I'm from Bengal, and Bengali says, loha khe hajam kore. They can eat a piece of steel and digest. So my question to you is that I am eating this Indian thali. I can eat all these things. Germans are not going to do it. They were born and raised with this. Mexicans are not going to do it. So what is the role for this, sort of prescribing a food when you are in a sympathetic overdrive and your gastrointestinal tract is not working? So remember, the whole stress is a sympathetic overdrive. That's what is your daily practice. Abha knows very well, and we are talking about all the time. Our practice is, this is the dinocharya, daily routine. This is our lifestyle. This is creating a relaxation response and parasympathetic tone. Please try to answer what the different foods are going to do.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. And that's what I mentioned initially, that we evolve with our microorganisms. So when I mentioned ancient Indian thalis, it probably means for the local Indian who has grown up eating that. It's not for everybody. But what it has, it's a wonderful example of balanced nutrition. It is very difficult to create a traditional Indian thali and eat nowadays because it takes so much time, but that's a wonderful example of that. And in order to balance the parasympathetic response, as you said, it would have to be done very gradually, and it would have to include things like fiber and micronutrients and the rainbow diet. As you said, it does not have to be a traditional Indian diet. That was just one of the examples I gave. And definitely, if people are eating dairy and meat, they have the microbiome to digest it and to get the most out of it. We don't, because we have evolved with the land, we have evolved with the local flora and fauna, and that's what is the easiest to adapt and healthiest for us to follow.
And just to continue the conversation,
Yes.
I just have my last comments for all of the participants. Yes. Is that the simplest way to explaining is that what Ayurveda says, Jatha Pindo Tatha Brahman.
Yes.
Okay, so we are part of the universe. If I'm living in Germany, as I said, your microbiome, my environment, everything changes, I will be able to digest that as a gradual process. Second, if you look at, Ayurveda says, Jatha An Tatha Man. That means your food is your mind. And if you look at the whole of our food, defined as a sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, which are the three states of the mind, Ayurveda never mentioned food in any other way. Yes. So what my response to it is that, is this the food creating the mind, which is creating the digestion, and it only happens because of Jatha Pindo Tatha Brahman. Balance between macrocosm and a microcosm.
Yes, that is absolutely
so thank you again. It's a wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
I hope we can leave it. We have some extra time. We are not going anywhere. Today is the evening. Abha, can you ask people to ask more questions? Unmute and ask questions.
That was a brilliant presentation, Dr. Kulkarni. Thank you. And we do have a question in the chat room from someone. It says, why microbiome diversity decreases as we get older?
Microbiome diversity decreases because the hormone response is completely different. The parasympathetic response is different. Everything is not functioning optimally. Even the diet is quite different. People don't eat the same kind of foods that they used to eat before. And that's how the microbiome changes, because even the outdoor exposure and all of these factors change. They start changing gradually, and as we age, they change so much that they actually affect the composition of the microbiome. And for people who are confined, the changes, the diversity is quite low. In fact, people living with other people, older adults who live with their families, have a much healthier microbiome than people who live alone, because they don't have the same outdoor environment or external exposure, and probably not the same kind of food. So I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you for that. Is there anyone else who has a question? Please go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah, Abha, this is Dr. Heda.
Yes, Dr. Heda, go ahead.
I want to thank you very much for arranging this talk. It was wonderful talk. And I have one question for Dr. Kulkarni.
Yes.
Is there any way you can find out what you have in your gut?
Yes, there are many sequencing services available in many countries. In the United States, there are many. And even India has microbiome sequencing, and they have nutritional advice as to what we can do to balance our gut. So yes, there are these services very easily available.
Thank you.
One more raised hand I see. Somebody is raising the hand, Dr. Kamachi.
I asked my question already.
Oh, okay.
The microbiome diversity, that's my question.
All right.
Thank you.
You can lower the hand down, you know.
Okay, I'll do.
And oh, hello.
Dr. Just Rashmi, the person who asked the last question, Dr. Heda, he's a practicing cardiologist and yoga practitioner.
Oh, great.
Wonderful combination.
Wonderful,
And
yes.
and he understands the
Yes.
mind, brain, heart, and GI tract very well. Dr. Heda, thank you for participating and asking that question.
Hmm.
And I think Dr. Vardhan may have some comment. I thought he was trying to raise his hand. Dr. Suman Vardhan, you will have to unmute yourself.
Dr. Vardhan, here he is. Yeah, Suman Bhai, go ahead.
Finally, I was able to unmute myself so I can speak. Well, first of all, such a brilliant lecture and to the point, a stepwise step is hardly seen in various previous presentations, which I might have seen several times. So it was a very good presentation, and I congratulate you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Rashmi coming out from another cardiologist.
Oh, great.
You know, he's
Wonderful.
a veteran cardiologist.
Thank you so much, sir.
Veteran yoga practitioner. Very well commented. Suman Bhai, thank you for joining.
Thank you. And that was all I had to say.
Thank you.
That was only
Thank you so much.
congratulatory comment, no description, no analysis. Everything was complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we have no other questions, we are ready to conclude the session.
See the couple of others.
Can I ask a question, please? Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
I sent you the question, but you may not have
Oh,
looked
I'm
at it.
sorry. I didn't see it in the chat room. Go ahead.
No problem, no problem. We are doing just fine. First, again, I congratulate and I appreciate this presentation. It's a wonderful presentation, very to the point. And again, how Ayurveda knew about microbiome, that kind of amazes me. So again, it is compliments to our rishis and sages. But my question is about modern medicine.
Yes.
Given that microbiome has provided a very different paradigm
Yes.
for chronic diseases, which is coming from molecular biologists like you. It is not coming from
Yes.
a yoga therapist. So my question is, in the next 20 years, how is conventional medicine going to adopt this reality of microbiome, which is the higher truth?
That's a wonderful question, and really it's something that we talk about all the time because especially because of our Kranti, when we are trying to increase nutritional awareness. It is so important that the healthcare burden in all of the countries, including the United States, in India, is so high because of diet. And we know that we are not able to fix it. Whenever we see outside, the options that we have for eating that are easy are not healthy. So it's very difficult to change the diet that we are eating. So when we want to look at reducing all of this healthcare burden, we need to focus, we need to make people aware of this. When there is a demand for healthier food, we will have these options, and we will move towards a way where we focus more on our microbiome and more on optimum nutrition and using food as medicine instead of using medicine as food. So there's a demand that needs to be created by making people aware. That is the simple answer. Unless we have that awareness, it's not going to happen.
Now that's excellent. And this is like a war between Ravan and Ram, if I can put it.
Yes, the war has begun. We started the nutritional awareness campaign on 13th April. It was launched. We are making the educational modules. It will go to everybody.
And I don't want to make a villain here, but I have looked at the obesity chart in America.
Yes.
And America is leading this thing and exporting, unfortunately, this obesity crisis.
Yes.
If you really look at it, what happened to America is in 60s, the fast food came.
Yes.
The slow food went away because of suburbia. Pharma came in strong with antibiotics and immune suppressants.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the doctors were sleeping on the wheel. And so now point is, what did we get? We got SAD, Standard American Diet.
Yes.
A very sad story.
Yes.
But I don't see either doctors or pharma or food industry changing. But now you are saying that we can raise the awareness. If the prime time television ads are coming from pharma, how do we do that awareness? How do we increase that awareness?
Okay, so we have started this initiative, and we started from India because we wanted to do something for India and then use that as a role model for everybody, because this needs to be done everywhere in the United States, in the European countries. India is in very much need of this. And we know that the pharma advertisements, the commercials, for example, if we look at toothpaste advertisement, it shows that you can eat as much sweet as you want and then brush your teeth and you'll be fine because you're using that antimicrobial or whatever toothpaste. These are very wrong signals that all commercials are sending. So if we manage to create awareness to all people, we have enough volunteers who will go on to reach other people and get other volunteers involved. We can reach people, we can provide awareness, we can make sure and we can have different goals and activities and make people change their diet slowly and gradually. It will take years and we are okay with that. But it has to start somewhere.
Can I make a comment
Yes.
just to follow it up, is that in the United States, we have in our medical school called Department of Integrative Medicine.
Yes.
Integrative medicine is the integration of the science of our modern medicine with the wisdom of our traditional system of healing. 15 years back, I can tell you about 3 or 4 medical schools had it. Today, 100 medical school has a department of integrative medicine.
Yes.
65 medical school has a fellowship program. And in 2014, there is a board called American Board of Integrative Medicine. You can take a 2 years fellowship after your training, and you can be integrative physician, and then you are integrating what you have just presented.
Yes.
This is exactly the part of integrative medicine. So the answering to your question, is that how you don't see it outside, but it is slowly getting integrated in Western medicine, and
Yes.
they are learning that yes, there is a difference in a kapha, pitta, vata timing. There's a difference of when you need to eat, difference, what kind of food you eat. It is coming. It is coming slowly,
Yes.
but it is already there, called Department
Yes.
of Integrative Medicine.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
I just quickly, I am a heart patient, and I was cured because of the integrative medicine doctor, Dr. Sarkar. You might know her in San Diego. Her name is Armenia Guarneri. But the unfortunate situation is that she has a practice and insurance doesn't cover it. You have to pay out of your pocket, the functional medicine doctors. So I don't want to make this platform about that, but still it's very important that we ask our politicians to lead this. And I have not found a single senator or congressman in US yet who is on this microbiome integrative medicine bandwagon. So that's all I would say.
Yeah, that's a wonderful comment, and we need to even for research, where does the funding come from? For so many years, the sugar lobby had suppressed facts about fat, and made the fat was the villain, so-called. For so many years, people thought that consumption of fat is so unhealthy, and cholesterol was made to be a very indicative of heart disease. And now, if we look at the facts, it's not true. So if major corporations keep funding research like this, it is even more difficult to show what's actually true. So we need to create demand awareness so that people start demanding more of what is good for them.
Thank you.
I'll give a plug to Dr. Abha. She's she's the editor-in-chief of Yoga-2021, and that could be a platform where we can advertise what you're trying to do.
Yes, I would love to do that. I had spoken to Abhaji about that, and yeah, we would definitely love to. We are already collaborating with a lot of institutes back in India and even here.
Great.
So that would be great.
Super. You did a great job, I must say.
We have a couple more comments and questions. So there is Bill. I think Bill is here. Bill, would you like to ask your question yourself?
To unmute first. Ask him to unmute.
Bill, you will have to unmute yourself.
Okay, am I there?
Yes.
Hello.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you so much. Wonderful talk. I'm kind of new to this area, but I'm learning so much. Quick question. You said twice that a change in the diet must be gradual. Does that mean gradual so that you can stick to it, or gradual because of the process that goes on with the microbiome?
No, I said gradual because we can stick to it, because what happens is it's majority the microorganisms that are craving all of these stuff. And if we try to eat healthy, if we force ourselves to completely change our diet, it can easily backfire. It happens almost all of the time. That is because it's not just us that's craving or what we would like to eat. So it's much easier to make it a gradual thing so that you don't have all of those pitfalls.
Okay.
It is a much smoother process if it's done gradually. That was the only reason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Kulkarni. This is Suresh. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much for this excellent talk.
Thank you.
I had a question because all these microbes are, they translate to your health.
Yes.
What's the association with this with intermittent fasting? Has that got
Great
anything to do
question.
with your microbe, and does that make a difference?
Yes, I'm sure it has everything to do with the microbiome, because when people do intermittent fasting, they're actually eating within that time frame that Ayurveda or even the gut microbiome is optimally specifying. You are eating within the dawn and the 12-hour period, or even shorter than that, and even the amount of food that is consumed. So I'm very sure it's extremely beneficial for the gut microbiome because it follows all of the rules of eating. most of them at least.
And also the quantity of food that you
Yes,
eat?
even the quantity of food, because now with the food delivery apps and 24/7 availability of everything everywhere, people don't think about the time they want to eat or even the amount of food people want to consume. So yeah, intermittent fasting is definitely very helpful.
And any tips how we could like decrease the amount that you want to eat?
If we start eating healthier food, which has high fiber and not just empty calories, it will definitely help cut down the amount of food that we eat, because the fiber is very helpful in keeping us full. So fiber and protein, if it's healthy, it will definitely lead to much lesser consumption of empty calories.
Rashmi, the question came from a neonatologist who takes care of little preemie babies,
Okay.
and a long-term yoga practitioner, and he does a Shirshasana headstand on the
Amazing.
beach. Everywhere, effortlessly he does a Shirshasana.
Thank you. I learned
Thank you.
everything from
Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you.
And his wife is an anesthesiologist, and she's also a yoga practitioner.
I used to give anesthesia for his patients. So I've known
Anesthesia.
Sarkar for a long time.
Very nice.
So she gave anesthesia for my patient, and we all discussed about yoga. We didn't know so much about yoga, but we connected, and she's a long-term yoga practitioner.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you. Excellent.
Big physician group for the yoga practitioner.
Oh, amazing.
Dr. Panigrahi is here. Is Dr. Panigrahi is here? He's in a nutrition. Others, do you see Dr. Panigrahi?
Yeah, I saw him in the
Still
beginning.
here because he's doing all the diet, and if you want to share others, Panigrahi, I don't see Panigrahi. Where is Panigrahi?
No, he was here. I saw his photo, and then I think somewhere along the line, maybe it's that sleepy time or something.
We have one more question from Susan. Susan, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, I have a question. I am in Dr. Panigrahi's course. It is by Dean Ornish's course to reverse, So my diet has, for the last 1 year, has been no fat, no salt, and no sugar. And so I asked him, how long will it take for my taste buds to change? He said 17 days. And lo and behold, on the 17th day, it changed. I now enjoy that food, no fat, no salt, no sugar. And it tastes wonderful because now for the first time, I can, individual vegetables, I can sense what it is. I mean, their flavor. And I'm just giving you a personal example. I have asked a question to some people because I'm involved with settlement on the moon and Mars. This is Ravi and I, we are working on it. And so I asked a question, what will happen in microgravity for 3 years? Round trip to Mars is 2 years. And you are in microgravity environment. What happens to the well, the taste will change or microbes will change. Well, those are questions that are far out. I'm just putting them here for you to think sometime along the line. We'll talk later.
Yes, that's a great question.
Susan
I
has a
would love to answer
question.
later.
Abha, Susan has a question.
Oh.
She's 100. Susan?
Hello.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask, are baby boomers experiencing more health problems because so many of them were born in the late 1940s, 50s, 60s, and they were bottle fed rather than breastfed, especially the 1950s to 60s. And then they started to eat all the processed foods. So
yeah, that's a great question.
Is that one of the reasons why we're experiencing so much obesity and all that? Because we had the wrong start to life?
Yes, the short answer is yes, because breastfeeding and bottle feeding have very different rates of, obesity and diabetes later on. There are many studies done on that. that have shown that infants who are fed formula do not get the same kind of start, and they have they are more prone to obesity and other health issues later on in life, because they are just not getting those metabolites from the mother or the microorganisms from the mother. That could be one of the reasons. And the diet later during life is also extremely important. The environmental exposure, I'm sure all of these factors have must have played a role in the health conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eileen has some comments. Eileen?
Mute. There we are.
Hello.
Yes, I just have this, well, I have many comments, but one is I appreciate all this information and it confirms what I've been trying to practice. There's a problem here in that many of our communities that are low income do not have access to fresh produce.
Okay.
And therefore cannot, even if they want to, abide by these recommendations.
Yes.
And so that is a big problem. Many are growing their own crops and their own vegetables in little yards, but I think we need a major effort to get that fresh produce to them.
Yes.
I can answer a little bit, Eileen, to you, is that these areas are called the food desert. You know, you heard the term called a food desert, and American Heart Association now acting proactively. They're going to the food deserts and they're setting up the places for fresh produce, and it is there a long-term program. It has already been started. So it is happening in the different parts of the United States. The term is very interesting term called a food desert. When it's a desert, there is no fresh produce.
Yes, so I just wanted to give a short answer for that. Excellent question. How can you eat fresh food when it's not available or it's not feasible? I just want to give an example. There's one company called Sky Vegetables here in New York. And what they do here is they have a 1,500 square meter hydroponics facility on a subsidized housing building. And they are growing everything using low cost material. The seeds are extremely low cost. The produce is extremely fresh. They employ people from the same community, from the subsidized housing. They are doing a wonderful job of providing these fresh produce. I had visited that 3 years ago. And something like this can be done very easily in food deserts. There are many companies who are interested in doing that, many individuals who are interested. I myself am a hydroponics grower. So that is something that can be easily done.
Can you do that in a small apartment, for instance?
Yes, very easily.
Oh,
very
good.
Easily.
That's another area we'll talk.
Yes.
Well, Eileen did post a message in chat where she said that she really enjoyed this informative gut microbiome health 101 presentation. So that's very good. And so thank you so much for this outstanding presentation.
Thank you so much.
These facts. So I think we are all ready to take the principles of yoga off the mat into the kitchen. And yoga is, of course, as we understand, that it is more than physical postures or asanas on the yoga mat. Yoga and optimal health is all about what is on the inside and how to nourish our body. So thank you again so much.
Thank you so much.
Also, I want to make another last comment. We have been in a diverse society, but we have seen that every society, every faith, they always start eating with a prayer. I have never seen a single faith, even I have been to the South American, the natives. I've been to Argentina, I've been to Brazil, I've been all over the world, presenting. Everywhere I went, they always start with a prayer before the meal. That must have some significance.
Yes, I have not really thought about it, but that's a very good way to, calm ourselves down and because we are not the ones digesting it, somebody else doing it for us. So we have to be really thankful for that. And we are eating something that's produced, grown and using energy, solar energy. So everything has to be very, we have to consider all of these and be very thankful. I'm sure these are some of the factors that people might be considering.
Right. And all these years I was thinking that it is I am who is craving for the ice cream, but it is the microbiome, the earth microorganisms.
Yeah, you can blame your microbes.
Microbes, yeah.
Yes.
Great. All right, wonderful. Thank you. Any other comment? It's so wonderful to see everyone here and many of the faces I'm seeing after a long time. So it's great to connect with everyone. So stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for the wonderful
Namaste.
introduction. Namaste.